Hey everybody, Tom Cassidy here. I've got Charles Cassidy, the co-author of the Framework for Exceptional Teaching. Developing the characteristics of exceptional teaching includes doing the basics well. And so week 7 and focus point 7 is all about, not forgetting about how important it is to do the very fundamentals of teaching. And I've divided them up into their own wheel, 9 things here. And again, this is really quite subjective. So there are lots and lots of different approaches to this, none of which are entirely correct or entirely wrong, most of which are helpful. I chose this because it made sense to me. This is a logical way of looking at things. But Charlie, I mean, from your perspective, we've got planning at the center, and then we've got the structure of the lesson, the learning, the content, then we've got the management of resources, students, and then the outcomes. I mean, it's pretty solid, isn't there? I mean, is there anything that you think is important to really bring out in this? I mean,
no, I mean, I think the inclusion of this is just from the perspective that, all the perspectives and the esoteric highfalutin abstraction only works if you're doing this as well. So these are the essentials, the nuts and bolts that you have to do just to get off the starting block. And
you should be doing these anyway. Whatever teaching, you should be doing these things. You should be planning. You should be making sure your structure is clear and appropriate for the students. The content has to be, equally accessible. You can't be sort of selective about who, in your classes. Differentiation is that idea. It's got to be engaging. You've got to manage the students well. That's all the classroom management stuff. In management of resources, which includes TAs and your own energy and all that stuff. Outcomes is kind of interesting because I focus on the making them achievement-based rather than attainment-based. Achievement being the distance you travel along a learning journey rather than just where you end up. And then authentic, as in, is what we're doing of a valuable purpose beyond, just the fact that it's a school project and those things. But really, I mean, you might have a wonderful car if you don't put fuel in it regularly. It's not going to go very well.
And also you're not going to, this is by mastering this, by having this stuff sorted and just locked down, then you can begin to sort of really look at all the other kind of attitudinal things. But it's not going to work unless it's fixed. I mean, I kind of, when I'm talking to parents and pupils about maths, this is kind of like times tables, number bonds, stuff. You don't want to be, when you're trying to solve some complex maths problem, thinking, wait a minute, how many 7s are there in 63? Your brain is, if you've got a limited amount of processing power, limited amount of attention, you might say, when you're in the classroom. If you're worrying about, resources and, whether you've differentiated properly, or, how on earth are you going to be sort of, thinking about your core philosophy or being, telling your story. So this stuff needs to be automated. It needs to be just a given.
So why is it in the framework then at all? Shouldn't it just be a prerequisite? I mean, why do you think I've put it in the framework so that it's something that we revisit?
Well, I think because the other things won't work unless this is taken care of. So, if you, neglect the basics and then you try and do all these other things, you're going to find nothing. You're not going to become an exceptional teacher, I can guarantee you that. So I think it's just, reminding people of the importance of the simple, straightforward nuts and bolts.
I mean, my argument for putting it in is that you need to be every so often reminding yourself of what the basics are and making sure you're still doing them. No one gets away with it. No one can just go off on their own totally, and the habits that they naturally do through minimum will, through inertia, are always going to be the best ones. It might be that they're doing 7 of these things, but they're forgetting really to make the outcomes authentic enough. And so I think that's why it's in the framework. But there's obviously a whole load more detail behind each one of these. So
we could be here for a couple of hours.
Okay, right, let's move it on.